Additionally, we're going to be using the question feature. So when you're called upon, you can, uh, we'll use a question feature, meaning when you have a question, write the word question before your question, and then that makes it easier for us to see. And when you're called upon, one of the ways that you can help us identify you is by using the raise hand feature. So you should see that in your toolbar. If you don't see it, look for it under more, and that will help us identify you and keep you in the order in which you raised your hand. So you don't have to worry. You'll be called upon in the order that we received that information. If there are things that you need to be more comfortable, such as off having your video turned off, that's fine. This is a meeting where you should be comfortable. And this is a meeting where you can network and grow and become a member of this community, a member of this treasured community. Brenda.
Oh, thank you so much, Christopher Johnson. And I want to welcome all of you. I'm delighted that you've made this a part of your Friday morning for the first Friday of the month here. My name is Brenda Meller. I'm your host for our monthly office hours for the self-employed or for those who are considering self-employment. For those of you who've been along the ride with me for a while, you'll know that I used to run a job seeker group. During the pandemic, we were meeting weekly, and then we ended up moving it to monthly. And I started kind of shifting, evaluating my business. While I've been serving the job seekers for a while, I've also been serving those who are self-employed, small business owners, and then people who were job seekers, but starting to pivot towards maybe I find a job, instead of finding a job, maybe I create my own job. And we started leaning into that area. So I decided to pivot my office hours, my free event, which you're in right now. Instead of just serving individuals who are in career transition and job seeking, we're now focusing is on individuals who are self-employed or who are considering self-employment. Now, this is the third. The first one, we just kind of got our bearings a bit. Last month, I threw into a topic, and I think the topic worked out really well. We were talking about insurance, because that seems to be one of the things that holds people back from really leaning into being self-employed, because now you've got to pay for your own insurance, health insurance, et cetera. And then you also have to think about business insurance. So for those of us who are, already self-employed on this side of the fence, so to speak, we talked about what we do, and we also gave you some options. Today, I'd like to throw out for discussion for our topic, pricing. How do you price your services? And how do you price your services in a way that makes your revenue sustainable so that you can continue to be self-employed and not have to go back and get a job? And I'll talk a little bit about my methodology, how I first started coming up with my pricing, how I evolved my pricing, when do you know you should start raising your prices, and when to walk away, because sometimes the money's not worth it. The headache that you'll get from these clients is not worth it. Sometimes you'll want to walk away. And we'll talk about that today as well. But what we're going to do to start off is we're going to have a group of individuals, which I deem all-stars. These are folks who've been along the ride with me for the past few years, who are self-employed. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell us a bit about their business, what did they do, who do they serve, and then how can people get a hold of you if you're interested in learning more. And then we'll start to do some conversations around this whole subject of pricing. Okay. As Christopher mentioned, and thank you so much, Christopher. Isn't he wonderful? If you ever need an MC for an event or a virtual producer or an in-person producer for that matter, highly, highly recommend my good friend Christopher. He's like just Johnny on the spot. I'm like, Christopher, can you do the thing? And he's like, yep, I'll do the thing. And he vamps. He does such a great job with that. And I just want to thank you for that. So before I start turning it over to the others in the group, I'll do my introduction because I often forget to do that. Can you believe it? Like, I'm a marketer and I forget to market myself. That's part of the reason why I have this slideshow running in the background so that you can get a little flavor of some of the things that I do. My name is Brenda Meller. I am enthusiastically self-employed. I've been working in my business, Meller Marketing, full-time for about 8 years now. Mainly what I do is I help the self-employed executives and corporate teams to get a bigger slice of the LinkedIn pie. I do that through one-to-one coaching, through executive profile optimization, through training teams on social selling on LinkedIn, and also through a variety of courses and online programs, including my membership community, which is called Marketing with Meller. So this is kind of moving pretty quickly up on screen here. I am going to share a copy of the links that are listed here inside our private unlisted group on LinkedIn, which I'm going to drop up on the screen for you all right now. And I'll remind you that if you've not already joined the group, I highly want to encourage you to join the group with us on LinkedIn. This is a private unlisted group. When you go over there to the group link, it'll say request to join. Then that's kind of like you knocking on our door. I'll look through the peephole to see who you are to make sure that you're someone who's been on our calls before, and then I will admit you into the group. You'll notice it says at the top here, private unlisted. And what that means is private means you cannot find it in the group's directory unless you're a member of the group. Okay, so you cannot find, if you search for this, you're not going to be able to find it. Unlisted means it won't be shown on your profile. So maybe you're at that point where you're trying to decide whether or not to become self-employed. Maybe you're still working but looking, or maybe you're unemployed and not sure if you want to have this be visible on your profile. It won't be. And the only people who can see that you're a part of the group are the other group members, and we're almost up to 40 members here. So when you click on request to join, I, as the group admin, will see these requests to join over here. And I'll just take a quick peek at who these individuals are. And we'll notice that, a lot of these are familiar names, people who've been a part of the group. And I do a once over on the names that are here. And then if you're interested in joining into the conversations, I would have you, as soon as you come into the group, check out the posts that are in there. There is one set up that says, please introduce yourself. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, lots of amazing people here in the group, feel free to do so. And if you have any asks or resources that you'd like to share with others, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. All right, I'm going to stop the screen share, put us up to fun gallery mode here. I'm going to ask our All-Stars to do their introductions next. Could you help me though, All-Stars, by clicking on the raise hand inside Zoom? That helps to bring you up to my top row. I learned that, I think I knew this in the back of my mind, but Bobby Carlton, who does Speaker Friend Friday, she mentioned that recently. And I'm like, oh, that's right. If you raise your hand, it brings you up to the top row. So it makes it a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you up into groups, and please take the time that you'd like to introduce yourself. Again, what do you do? Who do you help? What do you help them with? And how can people get a hold of you? If you do have any upcoming events that you're working on that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to do so. And then we'll start to do that facilitated discussion afterwards about pricing and value and all those fun things. So I'm going to put a few of you up on the screen now in the order that I saw your hands come up on here. So I'm going to put you in groups. So we're going to do groups of 4 here to start. So Diana, go ahead and start us off.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday. I'm Diana Stevens, and I am the founder of Mindful Job Alignment. But don't let that title fool you. I do wear a couple of hats. So, how I work with entrepreneurs is I really help entrepreneurs with stress relief through mindfulness and helping to put together stress-free routines in their day and in their week. The other thing that I do is I do work with individuals in transition who are either looking for another W-2 position or who may be looking to transition into self-employment. And I have a lot of resources for that. And I also conduct a monthly group on the second Friday of the month. So next Friday, I'll be doing my job seeker group. So if you know of any people that are in transition and maybe needing some help with that transition, I'm happy to help in that regard. I will put my links into the chat, my personal and business LinkedIn page links. So please feel free to connect with me if we're not already connected. And I'm also putting in a free giveaway that I'm doing on simple habits to add mindfulness to your week. It's a very informational PDF on just some simple hacks that you can do to rearrange your time a little bit and gain back some calm in your life. So I look forward to meeting everybody, and I'll turn it over to Kenneth.
Good morning, everyone. Kenneth Lang here, checking in from Northern New Jersey. Looking forward to learning as much as I can about the great topic today. One of my endeavors is My Networking Central, which is a searchable database of groups, events, and speakers. We're actually launching it as a paid endeavor later on in July, which has been something we've been testing for a while. What I did, like Brenda, is I did a little bit of a pivot from working with job seekers to small business owners, because the challenge is this: you want to pay it forward as much as possible, but from a monetary standpoint, it's not very beneficial. So I think that's one of the challenges that we all have. And in terms of future events, Brenda, I'm looking forward to seeing you in July. of course, the event we're all going to be promoting. Same with you, Chris, Christopher, and I think Sue Griffey. Sue Griffey and I, we actually chatted in New York a couple of weeks ago now. So I'm here to pay it forward as much as possible, but I'm very interested in the topic because in addition to the monetary aspect, I support my self-employment from working at Lee Harris as a brand specialist. And I think it's important to have some additional revenue coming in on the top of what you do because it can be kind of sketchy to know when you're going to have revenue coming and going on a regular basis. So great to be here. And Mindy, take it away.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. So I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. I know how overwhelming it can be when you're thinking about making that huge leap from employee to entrepreneur. I've been there, done that. When I got laid off, it felt like a smack in the head. I had no idea it was coming, and I was completely unprepared. So what I have put together is a program to give you some structure, to give you some guidance, and to break down that overwhelm into some bite-sized pieces. I'm doing a free information session on June 20th. We'd love to have you there so you can get understanding a little bit about the tools that I use, a little bit about the background, the backstory for why I created the program, and how you might be able to use that to reduce some of that overwhelm so you can get it into manageable steps. So that's on June 20th. And we have another event coming up with Linda Brubaker, who's going to try and shift your mindset a little bit about if you're still, because a lot of you guys are in transition, you are thinking about making that leap to entrepreneur, but you may also still be looking for jobs. So what Linda and I are going to be speaking about on June 8th, right, Linda? June 10th, okay. June 10th, that's next Tuesday. Yep, next Tuesday, not on Sunday, June 10th, is how to shift your mindset into what's in it for them. If you went into an interview and you were speaking a completely different language than the interviewers, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. So we need to think about how you can solve their problems. And we're going to talk about that on Tuesday. So I'm going to put both of those events into the chat. You can register right from the chat. And if you'd like to connect with me, I'm happy to talk to you about these things and love to meet you and help you on your journey. And there we go. And you should see that in your chat now. And Joey, it's over to you now.
Thank you, Mindy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Joey Himmelfarb. I am an author and speaker. I've written a book about how to sell yourself in job search. That's my target audience, if you will. I speak to people like that on a regular basis. I've taken over a networking group of several that I've been part of, but now I'm taking one over my own. And I'm on this call to help you sell yourself, whether you're looking for work or looking to start your own business. You still have to sell yourself. And I'm sitting on these calls as a New Yorker who will be in your face and try to make sure that you remain positive and upbeat and help you sell your business as well as yourself. Thanks. Susan, up to you.
Great to see everybody back here again. I was reflecting on the reason that I'm here. I'm self-employed, but also because Mindy mentioned people who may want to be self-employed but are still employees or looking. I'm finding for the last year there are many people who are now involuntarily self-employed. They're being asked to take contract work. There's no hope of them being an employee. I don't mean no hope, but the work trends I keep track of every quarter and present on showed us last fall that companies are going to be hiring more freelance contracting labor. So part of what I'm hoping this group helps me bring, because this seems to be people that are very motivated to be here with Brenda, we all love, or many of us love being with Brenda, is how and in what way do we look at that transition? Part of it's a mindset shift. Oh, that was hard. And then part of it also is the experience, because I'm seeing different pathways that didn't used to be so traditional. I remember, Brenda, you had someone, Miranda, whose last name I forget, talk about bootstrapping your business. And she said, don't do a website, do a LinkedIn company page. So looking at those interim steps that we can get people moved along on a potential journey to self-employment. And I think it's coming for many of us. Thank you. You'll see me raising pom-poms. I love to celebrate big things and look forward to an in-person Detroit celebration with some of you as well. Thanks a lot. On to Linda.
Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Brubaker, and I am a career transitions coach. Like many of the people in this room, we all started out as employees of somebody else. And one of the things that I do, and that I found even for myself, is that it's important to recognize what you enjoy, what you like, what you don't like, what value you can bring to somebody else, whether you're doing it in a full-time W-2 job, in a contract role, or in your own business. It's all about what you can do for them in addition to what you enjoy. And so my goal is to help people remember and understand what value they bring and to focus in on how they can transition those skills, those tasks, those things that bring them joy and that help them bring value into their next role, whether it's as an entrepreneur on a full-time basis, a part-time basis, many of which are, as Sue mentioned, involuntary, okay, but definitely growing, or whether it's in a role with another company. So that's my role and why I call myself a career transitions coach. I'm happy to talk to everybody. Like many of you, I have a free account, which means that on LinkedIn, I only have 5 connection request messages. For those of you who are in the same boat, it's okay. I'm going to put my connection message or connection information in the chat. You don't need to send me a message. I'll see that you were here. Just send me a connection request and we're all set. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Well, greetings. I'm Christopher Johnson, based in Metro Detroit, and I specialize in producing professional virtual events for nonprofit organizations like Feeding America and California WIC. So whether it's a webinar or an annual meeting or a conference, I ensure the events run smoothly and the organization's mission shines through. I'll put my connection information into the chat. I'd love to support your organization's success. Brenda.
Christopher, I've got to ask you a question
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I've heard your introduction before. And what I love about the fact that we do these introductions is that you get to hear people's business story and it reminds you about what you do. But I also noticed you started saying that you serve nonprofit organizations. Is that because that's where most of your clients were coming from, where most of the need was coming from? Or talk to me about that. So that's a new word I think you started using in your intros, right?
It is because I was looking at where my revenue comes from, and it is about 75% nonprofit organizations.
There you
So
go.
if
What
they're
do they say?
looking,
The riches are in the niches, right? So get focused on that niche and get focused on
exactly.
that in your section. Awesome. Love your banner as well, Christopher. Is that a Zoom banner you created, or was that from Zoom, or where'd you get that?
So this is from Zoom. It is available when you click on the up caret next to video and go
Mhm.
into filters. You
Okay.
can add this custom filter. So June is Pride Month. One of the ways I show my support is by changing my filter.
Mm. Look at that. I'm going to change my filter as well. So happy Pride to all. And thank you, Christopher, for showing us that. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we're going to get this kicked off here. The first thing I like to do, we did introductions with our all-stars, and I just want to say hi to the rest of you who are joining us here as well. So good morning and hello to Diana, Christopher, Kenneth, Mindy, Angela, Brad, Daksha, Dan, Joey, Kelly, Linda, Lisa R, Lisa V, Lori, Mark, Mary, Mimi, Nancy, Paul, Rachel, Rick, Sandra. We have Sandra 1 and then we have Sandra R. We got 2 Sandras joining us here today. Hi, ladies. Scott M, Scott S, Shannon, Sue, Tammy, and William. I like to do that because I want you to know that I know that you're here today. And candidly, as a host, I'm gonna lean in for this one. That lets me like take a second to like actually look through the chat because when you're hosting, you're kind of multitasking, you're piloting a plane, you're doing this, you're doing beverage service, all the other, and you kind of forget to look at the guest list, right? So I like to do that because then I can kind of see who's in the room with all of us here today. You know, one other thing we're going to do real quick is I'm going to ask for 3 people who are new to the group. I want you to go into chat and just type in the word new. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and you can come on camera and give a little pitch for your business if you'd like. So if you'd like to do that, if you're new to the group for the very first time today, go into chat and type in new, and we will ask you to come up on camera and give your introduction. So great opportunity to promote your business. This is what I'm all about, is helping you promote your business. All right, we got a couple takers on here. All right, so very first up I saw was Kelly. So Kelly, are you able to come on camera? There you go. Hey, Kelly. So why don't you first
Can you
tell
hear
us?
me?
Yeah, we can
I
hear you.
unmuted. Okay.
There you go. So tell us your name, what do you do, who do you help, and then how did you hear about this call?
Okay, great. So, yeah, my name is Kelly Picelli. You'll never forget me now. And I am an insurance agent. So I'm in a little different stage than what your people were speaking about. I have been in the business for 25 years. It is a family business. I am the second generation, but separated upon my father's retirement a few years ago, became a new agency form of myself. So I am actually a sole proprietor. I am a single person organization. My dad's still on staff for some support from some of his clients. And I'm sort of in a transition stage. I am big enough. I am self-supporting and whatever, but I need to grow my new business and sort of I am not big enough to hire someone yet to join the firm, but I'm almost too big to do it all myself. So I am looking to expand the business to the next stage, where I can grow new. I am 100% a referral-based business. All of my
Great.
business, which is growing year after year, comes from my current clients sending somebody else to me.
And is this both business and personal insurance that you deal with, Kelly? Or
I do
okay.
business and personal insurance.
Great. If you could make sure that you drop your link into chat, either for your LinkedIn or for your website, if you could. And then how did you hear about this call?
Right. So my son, who just graduated from Virginia Tech last year, is an engineer and is working as an engineer, but is very entrepreneurial and a little interested in my business, a little interested in being self-employed. You know, he is new and bright and all these great things going on. He has started this LinkedIn campaign. He said, here's how, he has put me on a program that
Yay.
we're going to start by trying to make contacts, use LinkedIn as a way of expanding and increasing my business. And so in the last 5 days, he has updated my profile.
So did he hear about this event and he told you about it, or how did you hear about it?
Correct. And so
Okay.
he wanted to
Gotcha.
even join us on the event, but he has to work.
All right. So I'm going to keep us moving along if you don't mind,
Go
Kelly,
ahead.
but do keep in mind this will be on YouTube.
Okay.
So you can grab the link and share with him later. And
love that.
I don't know if you caught it at the beginning, I'm converting this to a podcast as well. So now you're on a
Perfect.
podcast with me.
Okay,
So
perfect.
you can listen to yourself. You're now a podcast celebrity, so to speak. That'll be up
Excellent.
by Monday. So
Okay.
I'll drop the
I
link
will
for my
pass
podcast.
it on. I will put the information in your chat box. But thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Love the background, by the way. Very cool.
Thank
All
you.
right. Next up, I see Lisa Ramos, and Christopher, if you can help me, I'm having a really hard time finding and then bringing people up on screen here. If you're able to do it first. Can you find her? It was Lisa Ramos.
Right here.
Oh, there she is. Hey, Lisa.
Well,
All right. Glad you found us here. So Lisa, if you could again, introduce yourself and tell us briefly, what do you do? Who do you help? And then how did you hear about this?
well, I heard about this through Diana Stevens during a previous meeting.
Great.
And
And then tell us about your business, or tell us where you're at in your journey right now.
right now I'm building a creative business involving art and illustration.
Okay.
And it's taking a long time for me to work on my branding business as well because I have to think a lot and plan.
Yeah. Yeah. The startup can be time consuming. So
I
hang in
know.
there and hopefully you can make some great connections here in the room.
My
and learn from
mom is
others.
trying to interfere with my art business that I'm trying
Yeah.
to build.
Okay.
She gets
Do you have
very
a
persistent.
website or a
I don't have a
LinkedIn?
website, but I use Instagram for now.
Okay. All right. We'll share whatever links you have inside the
All
chat.
right.
We're happy to support you. You heard about the call from Diana, you said. I
Yeah, I
hear that.
did.
All right. Great. Well, we're glad to
Well,
have you,
anyway,
Lisa.
I'm in Cumming, Georgia, by the way.
Okay, great. We're so glad to have you. Thank you so much for coming up on screen. All right, we're going to go one more, and that's going to be Angela Nelson. Angela, come to the front of the room. Hello, Angela. If you could tell us again, tell us a bit about your business. What do you do? Who do you help? And then how did you hear about these calls?
Hello, Brenda. I'm so glad I finally made it. I'm going to kind of go in reverse. I was introduced to you from Dr. Brian Grossman. I want to make sure I put that out there that he invited me a few weeks ago, and this is the first Friday I've been able to attend. So I'm so glad to come in and join all of you wonderful people. And I am an entrepreneur and kind of like an accidental entrepreneur. Long story short, I was sidelined by not just one, but two autoimmune conditions. And I basically reinvented myself. And through a journey of healing and finding healing naturally, getting off of the what I call the medicine merry-go-round that they had me on for so long that literally almost took my life away. I found my own way to healing. And now my purpose and my mission in life is to inspire others, to give them hope and let them see that there is healing that can occur naturally. And so my business is Coach Angela Nelson. I am now a certified life coach, mindset coach, health and wellness coach, and hypnotherapist. So I work specifically with entrepreneurs and those who want to be entrepreneurs to gently remove the subconscious blocks that keep you feeling stuck so that you can move forward and reclaim your clarity, your confidence, and your calm and experience sustainable success that actually feels good by being authentically you. So that is what I do.
Wonderful. Can I give you a piece of marketing feedback, if you'd be okay?
Yes, definitely. Please.
So did you all notice when she pulled up on screen, that's a real background behind you. That's a computer screen behind you, right?
Yes.
So
Yes,
I
it is.
just tried, and I'm going to have our audience try as well. I just tried. Let me actually pull you up to full screen to see if it's different. I tried your QR code and it wouldn't work.
Oh no. No, I have checked it and checked it. Let me
Well,
double check.
you know what? It works on full screen. I
Oh,
think
but
it
not on
wasn't.
small screen.
And Angela,
Ah,
it's not an issue of the QR code not working. It was an issue of the size of it on screen.
okay.
So I'm going to and I'm pretty sure I'm going to remove you from the spotlight right now. If we put you down in the tiny gallery mode, we're not going to be able to scan it because it's the size of the QR code and our phone's ability to make out the pixelation. I am not a technical person here, guys. I'm just describing it as I know in my head. But if we pull her up into full screen mode, you got to give your phone a second. Mine did pull up for you. So here's my recommendation for you. I love that you have that in the back of your screen. Let me pull you back up as a spotlight as well. Zoom already says Angela Nelson.
Mhm.
If I were you, I might pull up the QR code like larger up on the screen and make Angela Nelson smaller up on the screen.
I will do that. Thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of call things out like I see them sometimes when we're doing when we did job seeker calls like this, we would give people feedback in terms of like the positioning of you on screen and things like making sure you're looking at the camera when you're speaking. We as humans, we want to look down and look at the audience as we're speaking, but you really need to be looking at the camera in order for the audience to make that connection with them. So little pro tips on here. Joey, did you want something to add something before we jump in?
Absolutely. Before I forget, and this is for everybody on the call, when Angela described her business and what she does, and she started alliterating using the letter C, I couldn't help but notice how Chris piped in non-verbally because he heard almost the same words he uses when he describes his business. So, two lessons here. Number one, your brand is so critical, and how you describe yourself, how you sell yourself is critical. You only have 30 seconds, if that, right? Secondly, if I may be so bold, sounds to me like there's a connection between Angela and Christopher, if for no other reason, just how they describe what they do. I'm going to leave it at that. I didn't want to forget that. I want to make sure I made that point. Okay, I'm done.
Good observation. I love when Joey comes into these calls. He always adds little flavor, sometimes a little spice to our conversations in here as well. So glad to have you. All right, so we are going to do a bit of a roundtable discussion here today, and I'm going to ask our all-stars, raise your hand if you'd like to join in on the conversation. And I put this into the chat earlier. I mentioned it that today we're going to talk a little bit about pricing. So I want to just ask the question of those of you who are self-employed, how did you figure out how much to charge when you first got started? Okay. And as I'm waiting for your hands to go up, I'm going to just talk about what I did. So I left corporate marketing. I left a six-figure position to go in and start doing this. And when I first started my position, my business rather, I was doing a blend of a lot of things. And this might resonate for those of you who are just on that start of your journey. I would do anything for money in the beginning. Like literally, can you do a website? Sure, I can do a website. Website was a service I was offering. Can you create a marketing strategy for my business? Absolutely, I can create. That was another service. Can you do social media management for our business? And at the time, it was Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah, I can do social media management. Can you do logo design? Sure, I can do logo design. Can you do LinkedIn coaching? Sure, I can do. And I did a little bit of everything. And I started figuring out in my head, and there's when you think about how much to charge to be self-employed, there's two things. It's the per project, per job, what you're doing, but it's also like how much money do you need to make? So I started with looking at my corporate salary, dividing it by 12, and figuring out less taxes and all that stuff, like how much I needed every month to be making what I made from before. So I started out with that. Okay, so that's the number I got to hit. That's the nut, right? That's the number I got to hit every month. And then I started thinking about when I was looking at what to charge for these services, I did a little bit of research and kind of asked around. I also had some experience working in an ad agency once upon a time with like project rate pricing and, coming up with components and number of hours and different types. So I had some experience doing that. So I figured out what my hourly rate was based on what I was receiving as a corporate employee. And then you increase it a bit because you need to cover your other expenses and things like that. Figured out how many hours I thought a project was going to take, and that's what I charged. Now, that's how I started out in the beginning. I also did a little bit of a scan of my competitors, other people who were doing marketing consulting and LinkedIn training and coaching. And if they listed their prices publicly, I just made a mental note of that. And you probably do this too. You kind of look at, am I comparable to that person? Am I maybe more experienced than them? Am I less experienced? I'm not the only person who does this, comparing people. I know I'm not. So I kind of thought, well, if Angela's charging, and I'm just using her name because she's on screen here, if Angela's charging 500 an hour for that service, I should be charging at least 400. Like I just, made that up. So that's how I started in the beginning. We're going to go into, some pricing strategy, when to raise prices as well. But I want to just kind of let you know that's how I started. I did a scan of the market. I figured out project rates, how much I thought things were going to cost. I also looked at my corporate salary, and I needed to make at least what I was making from before to make this sustainable. All right, so now I'm going to have some of our all-stars come up on screen and just share their stories. So how did you come up with your pricing initially? So we'll put you on screen here for those of you who've raised your hand. So Diana, why don't you start us off?
Hi. Well, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with pricing, but because I'm always thinking about changing it. I really am kind of doing different things, but I have a basic set rate that I do for a group of packages, which meaning a package of 3 sessions, and then I have an hourly rate. So I do that, and then as I'm talking to people, I work with people who are actually employed and looking to make a change, and then unemployed people who are needing to make a change. And so I really base the pricing right now off of people who are employed. So, and then I work with the unemployed people. I just verbally discuss price with them. But what I'm thinking about doing actually is I run specials periodically, and I run master classes periodically at reduced rates. And so right now I'm contemplating running a summer sale, but I'm going to include like what you do, Brenda, where you do the people can buy a bundle of packages of hours, and then they can use it as they need it. Because I'm finding that for the job seekers, they need the structure to get started. And then sometimes if they're not interviewing, they really don't need anything. But then as they start interviewing, they need more help with the correspondence with that, as well as they need the interview prep and things that go along with that. So I'm thinking about running that sale. And then I've been doing a lot of learning about, people who charge higher ticket. And this goes across entrepreneurism as well as people who are just working in the career space. But there's a lot of people out there that are charging multiple thousands of dollars for packages. And I think you have to consider your audience, and you have to consider your competition, because you can't price yourself so far out of the competition, and you have to price yourself in a range that the audience is going to pay. So that takes some research to really look at, who you're really working with and who's out there, and then looking at some really established people and see how they're doing it. And there's so many ways of doing this between packages and then between having memberships and what are you going to offer in the membership? And if you're going to do a special event, how are you going to do a special event? How much you can charge for that? And then the hourly pricing in terms of, payment plans, that type of thing. So that's how I'm doing it right now. In other words, I tend to change. I'm changing it around. I haven't landed on a real, I have a base range in my head, but then I look at whatever the person's situation is.
Good. All right. Thank you, Diana. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Next up, Mindy. And for those of you who are raising your hand, I'm just going to bring you up on screen so we can keep individuals rotating around in here. So Mindy, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Mindy.
Sorry.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that. So it's interesting, Brenda, because I also, when I first started, took my corporate salary and divided it up. And that didn't work out so well. I have
But you know
found,
what? I mean, it's good that you mentioned like it didn't work out. Like, I think for some of us, it's like a mindset thing too. Like, this is what my value was because this was my last corporate job. And, I've struggled with this all throughout being self-employed, like getting past that. And I've had months where I've made a lot more and I've had months that are softer months, not making as much. But it's at least good to hear that feedback. Like sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But you and I did something similar. We compared our salary, right?
exactly, because in my head, that was my value. I was making X, and of course I should make that again. But once I realized that I had to really look at the market, I think the best place to start is to find other organizations that do something similar to you and see what they're charging. That's the first step. It may or may not be relevant to what you're going to charge, but looking at what other people are charging gives you a frame of reference, something to start from. The other way that I do constantly, and I'm in business now 11 years, so it's been a while, you need to be flexible. And so as Diana was describing different programs will attract different types of people, and your pricing structure needs to be flexible enough to accommodate all those different types of structures, whatever you want to do. If you want to do a program like this, the Be Your Own Boss program, is a four session program. It's priced differently than my, hourly rates, right? Because I want to attract people. I want people to come in and want them to learn this product that I am teaching about, correct? So I think you need to be flexible. You need to have a good understanding of a base, and you need to be able to test it. One of the ways I test it is sometimes when I'm speaking to a potential client, and I ask them, and we start getting to the tough questions about pricing, right? They love everything I'm saying, and they say, well, what will that cost me? Sometimes I will ask them, tell me, what else have you seen? You've spoken to 4 other coaches. You just told me you spoke to 4 other coaches who do similar work to me. What are their pricings? What are you comfortable with? And many of them will just tell me. So there's a big range out there of what people are charging, and also a big range of what people will be willing to pay. You need to understand what the market is, and then you need to price yourself accordingly, depending on your needs, what you need to crack. Are you better off charging higher with fewer clients or lower with more clients? You have to decide what you want that business to look like. But that would be my advice for newbies.
That's a great point. Thank you, Mindy. And we'll probably come back to some of that structured into your pricing a little bit here too. All right, we'll go to Brian and then Dan next. Brian, what do you have to share?
So I will say, Mindy, Brenda, Joey, I can hear you all in my head when we're talking about pricing. So I'll say thanks for that. So I feel like sometimes LinkedIn is like Google. I'll post something or get something and I'll get 1,000 things in my inbox. I should be charging $20,000 a client and I'm worth it and da da da. And it's like somebody said something to me really key. Would you rather be starving versus if I get 100 clients at $100 for one session or 2 sessions, that pays my bills. So I'm seeking it like that. And then when you say, when all of you said, your corporate job. So my last corporate job has always been therapy at a clinic or private practice or something like that. So many coaches have said price higher than therapy. So you separate yourself from the market. And now what I'm doing is I'm targeting training directors, HR directors in healthcare, because they're the ones who I'm going to be doing some free lunch and learns next week. But I've already arranged, okay, if 10 out of 20 in the room like the project, like the information, can they just sign up and it's going to be this price point? So I set up a 15-week package and it will be like this, and it'll be a combination of in-person because they're local and virtual. And on my website, that's going to be updated in the next week or two with Angela's help, and Brenda's advice. I'm going to have packages, but say contact me for pricing because it's going to be different for everybody. And I'm finding when I put the pricing, I'm not getting much. So I will leave it at that because I know there's other people. And thanks so much. And you've hit the hot button topic. I think this should be a two-month or 2-week conversation.
It definitely could
So,
be. I think we could go on for this, but thank you, Brian, for joining the conversation. Always great to see you. Moving from here, Dan's a very new LinkedIn connection. I think we just connected like this morning or last night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But glad to have you on. What would you like
thank
to
you.
share about?
Yeah, so I will tell you that my interaction with Brenda is going to be slightly different than what yours is because uh, my company hired Brenda to do this, but I have experience as an entrepreneur in getting people to do this. There's two things I'd like to say. First is when you think about the amount of time it's going to take to get things done and like the amount of money you're going to have to earn, I would say you need to make sure that you dedicate as a part of your business plan. You're going to have there's going to be hours in the month when you're marketing, when you're doing things that are not going to be revenue generating. So instead of thinking about it as a 2,000 hour year in terms of what you need to make, break it down into maybe a 1,500 hour year or a 1,200 hour year, because that's going to give you some notion as to what you need to make the salary that you're doing. And then the other point that I was going, the other point was it's a little. I'm in Las Vegas making some really great memories with my daughter. We're going to go see Coldplay tonight at
Oh, fun! Lucky her. Yeah, lucky
yeah, you ain't kidding. Um, but there was one other thought I had about doing this. Not every customer is going to be as profitable as not every customer is going to be able to be as profitable as the next customer. So there may be times when you I heard like putting specials out there. You need to fill your pipeline. You need to think about what your revenue looks like. And to your point, to the last point about, would you rather be hungry or make your minimum, what you perceive to be your minimum value in the market? Sometimes you just have to, you have to do the work, and you have to figure out that, that while there's some revenue that's going, like, not all revenue is good revenue, but at some point in time, revenue is going to be important. So figuring out what that looks like, and then also being able to leverage that to get other customers. So you can do things like, hey, thank you for doing this. Well, I'm really excited. As a part of our engagement, can you, mention, hey, I'm doing this with this person. I'm getting some value out of it, because that's the social selling part of being able to leverage this information to be able to get more clients. So.
Yeah. That's great. And I'll just piggyback on that too, Dan, with saying, like, sometimes we can ask people to post and talk about it. Another form of doing that through LinkedIn is, can you give me a LinkedIn recommendation? Like for me, I'll strike when the iron's hot. I've worked with a client, we're wrapping up an engagement. At the end of the call, they're like, wow, this is amazing. I feel confident with LinkedIn now. I know what I'm doing. I've actually started to get leads through my activities. I'm so glad to hear that, Dan. Would you be able to give me a LinkedIn recommendation? By doing so, it helps me to reach more people like you who might be looking for my service. And 9 times out of 10, they say yes, absolutely, and they'll do that for you. But that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see you here, and thank you so much for joining our conversation. All right, Joey, I see you have your hand raised. Is it for the next topic, or did you want to add something onto this?
I just wanted to add, based on what you just said, Brenda, and what Dan was talking about. And in fact, what Brian was talking about is that there's in Sales 101, there's no guarantee if you treat your customers with dignity and respect that they will vouch for you moving forward. There's no guarantee. I guarantee you treat them like garbage, you rake them over the coals, you bamboozle them, they'll tell everybody how bad you are. So if you're trying to build a pipeline, you've got to do what you can to plant the positive seeds and hope that the people you satisfy become raving fans. That's all you can do. And I know hope is not a strategy, but you got to do that, because to try to rake somebody over the coals and hit a home run first batter out of the box, you're never going to get to bat again. So anyway, I'm done.
No, thank you, Joey. When Joey was using these analogies, it just reminded me. I started following this woman on Instagram recently. She's like, ladies, let's stop using sports analogies. Let's start using like makeup analogies. Like, are we really ready to conjure out? Different stories with it. But at any rate, always appreciate you being on here, Joey, and appreciate your insights. Okay, so next question. We're here talking about what to charge if you're self-employed, and we started the conversation with how do you come up with your initial pricing when you're self-employed. So the next topic I want to bring up is, when do you raise your prices? And I'm going to ask again, anyone in the group here, it doesn't need to be the all-stars, it can be anyone on the call. When did you raise your prices, and what was it that prompted you to raise your prices? I'm going to talk about, for me, like when I first started doing this, I was doing this just until I had a job. I don't know if you all knew that this was not going to be a thing. This was just until I get a job, I was doing this. So I was doing LinkedIn coaching. I was meeting with people one-on-one. I was doing team training. I was doing some social media just until I get another job. And I met with a friend. Her name's Amanda. And at the time, I was charging for a 2-hour LinkedIn coaching session in person. I was charging $150 for it. And I was like, I felt bad, like charging $150 for 2 hours, meeting with people, like going through the LinkedIn. And I met with her and we did the 2-hour session. And at the end, she said, "You're not charging enough." And I still internally, I hadn't caught up with that yet. Now I'm going to fast forward and let you all know that same package today is $750. Now I didn't go from 150 to 750. It went incrementally, and there's some other things that I add in. I add a LinkedIn profile audit as a part of it, a 30-minute accountability phone call. They're now virtual, recorded. I send you resources. So there's a package that goes around it. But for me, I knew when it was time to raise my prices when I heard people like Amanda saying at the end of the engagement, "You're not charging enough." People were telling me that. So that was one signal for me when it was time to raise prices, when people were saying, "You're not charging enough," because they saw my value. My mind wasn't there yet. I couldn't do that. I think I gradually raised it $50 at a time. It went up to 200. And every time I raised my prices, I texted, she's my friend, Amanda. I would text Amanda and I said, "I've just raised it to 200. She's like, "Good for you. Now, when are you raising it to 250? And I incrementally kind of went there. So for me, when people say you're not charging enough, that's one point in time. Another is if every client that you're proposing that service to at that rate is saying yes, you're not charging enough. Most people aren't going to say you're not charging enough. They're going to pay whatever. They're going to be like, "Wow, this is a deal working with Diana. I can't believe she's only charging that." They're going to pay you whatever you say. They're not going to say what my friend Amanda said. But if you are, every time you're proposing your package, they're booking with you, it's time to change and it's time to increase your prices. That's my take on it. So I'm going to ask again, if anyone would like to add to the conversation, raise your hand just like Brian's done. And let's talk about, when do you know you should be raising your prices? So Brian, what do you have to add to that?
So I will say this, just echoing when people tell me I need to do it, but again, I'm trying to feed my pipeline. So I've broken it down into, that's why I took my prices off. Corporate pricing is going to be different. It's going to be higher. If Joey calls me, he's self-employed and he needs help, and I met him through you or a networking group, I'm going to charge him differently because I know what it's like when you're starting out. And what I kind of say is, I'm going to give you this special pricing. Normally my price range is this, but for corporate training, almost everybody who's my cohort or competition, I've looked at their pricing and I am not charging enough. And I'm curious what your other superstars will say. A couple of my colleagues said, if you go to a big hospital group, because I'm targeting healthcare right now, or a bigger company, and they see you're charging 1,500 for 6 weeks, they move on. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. But I'm trying to price it based on what I see with, I'll say, competition or like-minded professionals, and what's the fit for what I'm doing. But I will also say, and I don't know if anybody has this, I've gotten over the anxiety of, Brenda, it's $15,000 for 15 weeks for 10 of your people. And then I don't say a word. And that took me like 3 months to practice, without
Can I,
climbing,
can I
well, I'll do
offer a
it for
variation?
7,500.
Can I offer a variation of that response?
Please, please,
And
please.
this might help all of you on the call as well. When people say, how much is that? Instead of saying for $15,000 you get 15 weeks of coaching, up to 10 attendees, one-on-one support, unlimited emails and direct messages, plus the 30 years of corporate experience that I'm bringing into that. Your investment would be 15,000.
Yes, somebody
Did you
pointed
notice
that
the
out
feeling
earlier
of
this
that
week, so you're
differently?
perfectly on
And I
track.
said,
Thanks.
I didn't say the cost is, I said the investment. And I also outlined the value. I'm trying to move away from describing hours. I'm trying to focus more on features and benefits and how it helps them. Because from their perspective, they're not buying a $200 package. They're buying a solution to their problem. So you got to sell them that solution to their problem too, right? Good. Well, thank you, Brian, for that. Does anyone else want to add to that in terms of when should you raise your rates? Any thoughts there? If not, we've got about 10 minutes to go, so I'm going to move into when to walk away. And does anyone have any thoughts on when should you walk away from a prospective client engagement, even though they're willing to pay you the money? And I'm just going to give one example that, sometimes there's people out there, they just want to negotiate. They just want to negotiate. I do not negotiate my pricing as a consulting. My pricing is my pricing. That is what I charge you for my services. And I sometimes will do something where I'll do a proposal and I have 3 prices. There's the good, better, best, maybe a 1-hour lunch and learn versus a 2-hour team training versus a 2-part team training. And I had one client that basically they kind of wanted the best at the good pricing. And I said, for X dollars, here's what I can do. And if you want to get some elements of the best package at the good pricing, then here's what we can do. We can reduce the number of people. We can take out these other elements. We can focus more on different areas, but I don't negotiate down. Sometimes if that happens, there's a negotiation. There should be some give and take on both sides. If I have a client who's just digging their heels in and they're not willing to see my value or have that conversation, the negotiation conversation, I'm prepared to walk away, because you know what's going to happen? If you do sign on with them, they're going to really question a lot of the things that you're bringing to the table. Did I get everything that you paid for? And I've seen like memes flying around. If anyone has a link to anyone, feel free to drop them in chat. But you have a client that says, okay, I'm going to pay you a check for $500, but I need to see results in 30 days. This needs to be life-changing for me. This needs to do this. It needs to do that. You need to over-deliver and blah, 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 all this other stuff. If you're agreeing to that, then I'll send you the check, but let me know first. Versus $25,000 client, check is in the mail, looking forward to working with you. There's a different mindset that happens there sometimes for different types of clients in those scenarios. All right, I see a couple hands that are raised, so I'm going to bring up Mindy and Sandra. So Mindy, what would you like to add? Oh, Mindy is muted.
Sorry, I'm always trying to stay quiet. So yes, there are those clients that are never going to be able to work with you because they're just too difficult to deal with. But for me, a lot of when I decide if someone is not the right client for me, it is based on what value I am providing and what they're willing to do. And so one of my very, very first potential clients had asked me to do something for him, which was at the time I was doing HR handbooks a lot. And he said, I need you to do a HR handbook for me, but I just want you to know that I had no intention of using anything you're going to put in there. I just know I need it for the DOL, Department of Labor. So it was tempting because it was a nice chunk of change and it was very, very early in my career. But I couldn't possibly work for him because my integrity meant more to me at that time, and still does, than anything he could have paid me. I couldn't possibly go there and then defend what I had provided to him. And then when he out and out said to me, I have no intention of doing any of this, and don't come back to me and say, how come you didn't do this? So when you hear things like that, that make your skin crawl, walk away. And I did, and I'm very glad I did.
Yeah. And I'll echo to that too, Mindy, the clients that I've walked away from, even before they became clients, and sometimes I fired clients, I've said we're ending our engagement. I've never regretted any of those things. I've always been, because as soon as you release yourself from that situation, a mental weight has been lifted that allows you to focus your time and energy on clients who are willing to see your value. So
100%. I agree 100%, Melissa.
All right, great. Sandra, it's so nice to see you. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Yes, I'm early in my business development, and I did have a client or a potential client who was referred to me, and I have my program developed in components. However, there is a required pre-work to be able to bolt on any of those components. This client only wanted one component without doing any of the pre-work. So I gave her a little sample of that component as a complimentary session. And it went rather poorly for her because of the fact that the pre-work had to be completed. So I presented to her my proposal, and that included the pre-work, and that was required because I've had the experience where I've discounted myself, devalued myself to the point, and I'm one of those people, and there are some people here on the call that can appreciate this and resonate with what I'm about to say. I'm one of these highly sensitive people. And I study quantum physics, and I'm very sensitive to energy. Oh, as I said that, I just had this flood. I become resentful if I devalue myself to the point where now I am giving myself for free and devaluing myself to the point where, I'm like a 1 cent candy that you can buy at the store instead of the actual value and benefit I bring. So it's important to know your client. What is your ideal client profile? Describe them in detail. And yes, you will get some tire kickers. That's just part of the game. That's part of sales. And for me, I know who my ideal clients are, and I can develop custom programs for them. But there is that necessary pre-work for me to be able to deliver the optimum service that they deserve. And it's this piece of they deserve better than what they think, and helping them realize that. So my price is my price, and that is the way it is, because I deliver something that I'm unable to actually see anyone else in the market who delivers what I do. And it's in demand, and this is the way it is. And I feel good about it. And now when I feel good about it, I'm energized, and that comes through in my service delivery. So
Great. Thank you,
that's my
Sandra.
comment.
And
You're
I think
welcome.
something to really focus on, she said this is unique. There's not other people in the market who do what I do. Focusing, that's a unique value proposition. Kenneth, I love your comment. He said, would you ask a plumber, electrician, et cetera, to work for free? They have a rate they charge, and you should too. And there's another analogy I like to use with the work that I do. If I were to equate it to an electrician, it's not the act of cutting the wire. It's knowing which wire to cut, right? And my years of marketing experience, LinkedIn coaching, like I know why people do the things that they do on LinkedIn, and I know what works and what doesn't work, not because there's a box that you fill in, but because of those years of experience that are coming in. So I want to thank, we're going to start to wind us down. Thank you, Sandra. I'll pull you off screen here. As we start to wind down our conversation, I did pop something into the chat. If you liked the conversation today, you will love being a member of my Marketing with Meller community. It's a membership community. Monthly, it's just $57 per month. We also have an annual membership right now for $570 for the year. So you get 12 months for the price of 10. And I'm doing an open house. This is a free virtual event coming up on Monday, June 16th at 1:30 p.m. I put the other time zones in there. That's Eastern time. But it'll be a 1 hour, and I'll just be walking you through what is Marketing with Meller. I'll be giving you a view of the different program library. I'll show you some of the upcoming events. And if you're interested in joining, I'll talk about what that process looks like. I am going to be doing a price increase coming up probably in August for Marketing with Meller. So now's the time to join if you are interested in that program. You're going to learn things from me. I talked about a couple of this call. Like, for example, I don't discount my pricing. I do offer special rates. So for members of Marketing with Meller, you get a special rate on my power hours. I don't discount, but I do offer a special rate. It's the same thing, but I don't call it a discount because I see the value in the way that you position those things. And I will remind all of you that this is, I'm going to pull us back into the gallery mode here too. This is a call that I'm offering now once a month on the first Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time or whatever time zone you're in. It's the same time every month. Mark this on your calendar. We will be using the same link through the end of 2025. So if you've got it on for today, it's the same link for the rest of the year. You don't need to register again. If you do come across friends who are self-employed and they're talking on LinkedIn about promoting their business or getting things off the ground, tag me into the comments. Just say at Brenda Meller may have some resources that can help. That's your way of winking to me, and I'll wink back and I'll go into the comments and I'll say, thanks, Lisa, for tagging me in. Hey, Nancy, here's the link to my next Friday office hours for the self-employed. You're welcome to join us. This will always be free on Fridays. It will be broadcast out to YouTube. If we get too large where the 100 meeting size is full, then you'll have to go on to the YouTube. So my advice for you is always come on a few minutes before the start time so that you can be in gallery and be a part of the discussion. Otherwise, you'll have to go into the overflow room up on Zoom, or you can watch it later in the podcast. If you're a podcast listener, my podcast is called Enthusiastically Self-Employed. You can just search for my name on any major podcast network and you will find my podcast. Alternatively, you can go to my website, mellermarketing.com/podcast, and you can listen to past episodes in there. I do publish weekly and we focus on business marketing and LinkedIn tips inside of there. And the final thing is the Detroit event. If any of you are interested in joining us, we're doing this event on Tuesday. I have to think about this for a second. Tuesday, August 8th. We will have one more call before that date. But if you're, I'm sorry, what did I say? August?
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I'm multitasking and my brain is not pulling the right words. I don't know about crushing it, Rick. I might be being crushed right now by my brain cells or something. But at any rate, this is an event that we're planning in person here in Metro Detroit. My friend at the American Cancer Society has graciously agreed to let us host the event at their venue in Southfield. Tuesday, July 8th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We were going to make it free, but we do need to cover our costs, and we weren't sure if we were going to find a sponsor. So we decided just to charge $20 just to cover light refreshments and any supplies that we need for the event. Anything left over, I'm donating to the American Cancer Society. So it really is, it's not a nonprofit organization, but that's what we're doing. We're just covering our costs for coffee and lunch, and then we're donating back to the American Cancer Society. And I'm going to share this up on screen real quick here so you can see. For those of you who are in Metro Detroit, we'd love to have you come out and join us. You're going to get to meet people in person like Kenneth Lang, who's coming in from out of town. Sue Griffey's coming in from out of town. Lynn Williams coming in from out of town. Christopher Johnson and I are both in Metro Detroit, as is Pam Lippitt, Gabby Mowry, and Amalia Gardner. But what we're going to do is we'll have everyone around the room will go around and do 30-second intros. So this isn't just going to be us teaching you. It's going to be you getting an opportunity to promote your business to others. We're going to have a panel discussion. And then depending on what we talk about in the panel, we're probably going to do some breakout sessions. And we're going to determine those topics during that panel discussion. Then we're going to do some speed networking at the end of the event, and there'll be some opportunity to share resources with others at the event as well. So be sure to check that out. You're on my email list. I'll send you an email reminder, so no worries for all of that. But I do want to thank all of you for being a part of today, and I'll just say thank you real quick to all of you. Thank you to Mindy, Christopher, Diana, Angela, Brad, Brian, Daksha, Joey, Kelly, Linda, Lisa, nice to see you. Nancy, Paul, Ray, Rick, Sandra #1 and Sandra R, Scott M and Scott S and William. My name is Brenda Meller. I hope that this call has been helpful for you. If there are topics you'd like to see us discussing in future calls, please go into chat and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to pull them out of the sky. I'm going to pull out topics I've heard other people that are self-employed. But if you have something you'd like us to talk about in a future call, do let us know and we will add that to the agenda. With that said, I'm going to stop the recording now. And if you would like, you can download the chat before you leave the Zoom here. All right, so the recording is stopped. Let me stop the live stream on here as well. And